Leave computer on. Marcy is talking about.
All right. I call a regular meeting to order. A recording and or broadcast of this meeting is being made at the direction of the board, which may capture images and sounds of those attending the meeting. Let's start by calling the roll. Jessica Spicer.
Here.
Charlie Cirque.
Here.
Vladimir Ivanovich.
Here.
Steve Talio. Also here, all members are in attendance. Will everyone in attendance please stand for the pledge of allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
No, we both did.
All right.
Nice
Would
try.
any board members like to provide comment on the agenda? We're hearing none. Would anyone like to make a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
I'll second.
Motion to approve the agenda as presented made by Vladimir, seconded by Shally. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes 5-0. D4 closed session report. No action was taken in closed sessions. We move straight to D5 superintendent's update.
All right, just a few things. Wanted to share some good news. Thank you to Steve, and I think Brian, you were able to go last week as well, but we did receive word from Valley Health, that we are getting some additional grant funding for Egan. So an additional $81,000 to hopefully get that wellness center really up and running. We are still waiting on hearing about whether or not we're going to get some additional money for a block wellness center. But staff is very excited. We're looking at adding an additional day of mental health services. So we have someone staffing that wellness center on a daily basis, which is terrific. Yep.
And if we don't get the additional money for block, what then? Why hasn't this happened?
Yes, I mean, we certainly have mental health resources already in place over at Block. It's just a slightly different model, looking at a wellness center versus our counseling center.
Okay.
They
Yeah.
have a room in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that 81K is in addition
to
40 or
Something
something.
like that. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah, it's really terrific. So we're very appreciative of that. Last week, our schools started opening, our secretaries are back, our clerks are coming back this week, our principals are all back. We've seen sightings of teachers. We welcomed, you'll see some in our school preparation slide deck, but we welcomed our new teachers last week, which was terrific. This week, we have several days of teacher professional development for our new and returning teachers, so we're excited to launch that. Next Monday, I invite you, I think I shared this in my weekly update with you, but if you're available Monday morning at 8:30, we have 8 o'clock coffee and an 8:30 start for our welcome back to staff over at Egan. So we always love if you're able to join us and say hello to our returning teachers. And then first day with students is next Wednesday, the 14th. We are pumped and excited, and our schools are looking great. Shout out to all of our great folks, and Eric's going to share some details on all the work that's been done this summer. Yep.
Could you remind me about our induction program and when it takes place and
Sure.
new teachers and stuff like that? Just quickly.
Absolutely. Our induction is for every new teacher who requires clearing of their credentials. It's a 2-year program. Our own induction program, I believe we're going into year 3 of our own induction program, and we just got word that next school year, so 25-26, when we're in our 4th year, we'll actually get our site visit from the credentialing group. So Sarah Gerlinger, who was kind of leading our charge there, is actually going to participate in those site visits to other school districts this year. So she gets a sense of how it all goes down, but it's great. I don't know the exact numbers that we have for new teachers this year in induction, but we have a good number of new teachers, and it's a great experience for them. Real practical.
Thank you.
Yep. That's it for me.
Okay. Moving on to the consent calendar, would any board members like to provide comment on anything on the consent calendar? Seeing none, would anyone like to make a motion to approve the consent calendar?
So moved.
A second.
Motion to approve the consent calendar is presented, made by Vladimir, seconded by Shelley. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes 5-0. Employee request to address the board. All, I'm sure, getting busy, getting ready for the start of the school year. We'll hear from them in the future. To provide public comment on an agenda item, speaker cards are to be submitted to the superintendent. Speaker cards will not be accepted once public comment on an item begins. Your name will be announced when it is your turn to speak. We move on to community comments. This time is reserved for members of the public and employees to address the board on items that are not on the agenda. Does anyone here want to address the board on any items not on the agenda? Seeing none, we will move on to H1 2024-25 school preparations.
Great. Well, this is, you have all three of us providing an update, so maybe I'll do it from above and take our turns. This is a collaborative welcome. So we are thrilled to start the 24-25 school year. We're going to talk a little bit around where we are with enrollment, staffing update, our summer PD offerings, and then all of the great summer work that happened. So as of last Friday, we were up to 3,427 students. You can see that's up from our registration in June. As it always happens, we will lose some and we will gain some. Bridget, our fantastic registrar, has been incredibly busy. She's got a staff of folks working with our nurses, making sure immunizations are ready before kids start school. And we're getting phone calls that people have moved and they're being relocated. So it's this constant in and out. And so we'll do an update once school actually begins, because that's the best time for us to see who lands in a seat. And just wanted to remind you, we're excited. We're up to 8 TK classes this year. We have 1 at each of our schools, 2 at Springer. I was just in, thank you, Marcy. I was in our TK classroom here at Covington today. I love the way our TK teachers set up their classrooms. It looks so welcoming, right? We want to really engage, inspire our very youngest learners to want to come to school every day. And Denise Khaled and Greg Drummond are working really closely with our TK team this year to expand the way we think about play-based learning in TK. So you'll get lots of information on that this year. Am I handing this off to Carrie for summer staffing?
So if you recall that wonderful celebration we had with retirees, in the spring, we've been working really hard to try to find excellent staff to fill vacancies. We are trying to right size staffing to enrollment. However, we did hire 21 certificated positions due to retirements and resignations, et cetera. And as Sandra mentioned, we did increase those TK classes, which required the hiring of TK aides and some literacy aides, and backfilling classified positions in special ed, library, and in the office. And I'm really proud to say we are 99% staffed. We are waiting for 1 teacher to be released from contract with her current district. But other than that, our positions are filled and we're ready to go. So with that, we've been offering some robust professional development opportunities for teachers and staff, just like in years past. You can see the wheel that we lovingly call it. We've moved our focus onto what we're framing as deeper learning, but it's really the capturing of the development of skills, habits, mindsets for kids, as well as rich learning experiences. So we have 3 days of professional development for teachers around those topics by grade level spans. And then we did a full day with our administrative team last week. In addition, we brought in the Writing Institute to offer sessions that were nice and full. We've done some safety care training, and then our early literacy assessment training, and then our new teacher orientation, which this year was really fun. A group of new teachers excited and ready to go. And so with that, we've had some summer projects that Mr. Wojciechowicz will talk about. Ta-da.
Ta-da. So just like that, ta-da. You know, a lot of work gets done during the summer that the teachers that go on vacation, There's that ongoing daily maintenance and custodial work that's been being done by the staff, and then there's a lot of heavier deep cleaning. All the furniture is taken out of the classrooms, the carpets are cleaned, the floors are stripped and waxed. A lot of dusting and cleaning of things that you just don't get to during the normal course of the year. We have a lot of camps, and so there's a lot of moving the furniture for the camps. And the camps benefit so many of our kids in the community. The facilities are used really much year round. So our schools do get a lot of use, and they're in elementary school, and so the kids are a little bit rough on the schools. But that's normal. So highlight a couple big projects. We really worked hard this summer. We got every single parking lot seal coated. The only one we're waiting on to finish up is Gardner Bullis next, because we're gonna do some of that, American with Disability Act, some paving repairs in the front of the school. But real important to maintain your asphalt. Just like everything, prices have gone up. Asphalt used to be about $60 a ton. Now it's about over $100 a ton. So a ton of asphalt is like a small little patch. It's not a lot, right? And so if you had to redo all the parking lots, it'd be very expensive. So by maintaining the parking lots, putting seal coat down, one of the vendors that was out there doing it, it's gonna take a lot of product, meaning oil, because the asphalt hasn't been seal coated so long, it's kind of like soaking up all the oil. But pretty important, all the parking lots were seal coated, all new striping was done. And we feel that'll help us out a lot. Covington is a very big parking lot.
Yes.
We're very fortunate. We did a lot of the playground area kind of in the back, and the pathways all the way back behind Rose, almost up to Rosita Park. So a lot of the pathways and things were getting seal coated. So pretty important to do that. This is a picture of Loyola on the left, and then that's the entrance to Oak. We did it all on the weekend, so it didn't impact any of the camps for the shutdown. And the contractors were able, and they just finished Egan this last weekend in Almonds. They've all been completed as of this last weekend.
I noticed the signs that,
Yes.
that you couldn't get onto the campus.
Um, And we put signs up everywhere letting people know the
Yeah.
chargers were out of business, so the people and the public were actually super appreciative of giving them advance notice. We also did our portable removal project. The last ones are being sent out of spring this weekend. This is a picture of how they're being staged in the back at Covington. We moved 4 portables here and 5 at Springer, so 9 portables total were removed this summer. All rentals. The schools have been great about letting us rework where teachers go, putting them in better classrooms. There's a lot of moving of teachers getting course likes, or like I would say grade levels, where you get 2 third grade teachers are like right next to each other. So when they're sharing and doing lessons, they're right next to each other. So they're not kind of spread out. So that's pretty important just for the instructional side of the house. But this is a big project. There's still some asphalt. There's a lot of ramps that had to be built up to get into the classrooms. So some of the asphalt repairs have to be done, so we'll be getting that done. But all the electrical and most of the big plumbing stuff has been done already. And then a lot of summer projects, up at Gardner Bullis, there's a very, very large field that the board approved that project last year. Last June, they put the PTA paid for a complete renovation of the sod, which is on the middle field at Gardner Bullis. Turned out great. It just got mowed on Friday for the first day. It's really looking really nice out there. And the reason I showed a picture of that tree stump is that's a tree, that's a very large redwood tree at Santa Rita. And
Oh,
part of those trees were during the storms, as you know, we had the one tree fall on the classroom building at Oak. And so we had a certified tree assessor go around as part of risk management, really looking at all the trees. And these trees are great if they're out in the forest, but not great around schools and kids.
Yeah.
So we had a couple of trees removed at Santa Rita. We don't like removing trees, but these are very large pine trees, redwood trees that were not in a great location, right next to classroom buildings and the lunch canopies. And when we removed the tree, we found the inside of the tree was actually decaying. So we felt like we were very fortunate to be a little proactive. But that's just a perfect example of, taking experts that are, an arborist that's certified that goes around, that's what they do for a living. They said, hey, that tree's probably not a great location. And we said, yeah. So we're gonna be working with Gary Hedden, who's with our, we'll bring over the green team of Los Altos. I have a meeting with him tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. and to see if we could partner with them They'll probably help us plant the trees, and then we'll try to find some trees that are more appropriate for around the buildings. There are some Chinese pistache trees on the other side, and the permanent classroom buildings, we feel like that'd be a good species just to select. So we'll be working with Gary. We have a meeting with Gary tomorrow morning. Summer projects, in the past, we would hire a company and they would go around and put the mulch and to make the playgrounds, when the kids are on swings and some of the playground equipment, when they fall, they land on some soft wood fiber. And we felt like it'd be more appropriate to use our own staff to do it. So you can see a lot of the maintenance and ground staff are doing it. We would purchase the material, we use our own tractors, deliver it, spread it out. Significant savings, probably over $50,000 just by doing it ourselves. And they enjoy doing it. They're working together as a team.
Yeah.
The other great thing about doing it is they're very cost effective, because sometimes the company would come around and they would just blow it in with like this big blower. Well, then it gets like all over the place, right? So by this, it's a little bit cleaner, neater job, and we're not wasting the fiber, having it go all over places where it shouldn't be. This is a great example of the thing I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation. Is a lot of summer cleaning, the rooms, the classrooms are being vacuumed and they're cleaned and so on. But a lot of the deeper cleaning and the scrubbing of all the floors, you can see all the materials are taken out of the classrooms, the bathrooms. And the one thing is on the far right, we actually hired our cafeteria staff who are not working during the summer because they only work 10 months during the year. And I got this idea from Kathy Rouse, who is retired from Sunnyvale Elementary. And she goes, Eric, we hire our cafeteria staff because they're awesome people. And I said, so are ours. And I said, but what happens is they're not working during the summer. And then the custodians who are used to using the heavier equipment for doing the floors, they can focus on the floors. And then the cafeteria staff helped us this summer doing the windows, the dusting, and other cleaning that gets done during the summer. Great thing. We asked, and we worked with CSEA. They're very happy to give some opportunities for our own staff to get some extra work. So it's great idea. We love stealing from other people's ideas. We thought it was a great way to give some of our great classified workers some extra work during the summer. And Jeff Bear, loved working with them. Jeff was getting our ground staff out there. A lot of the ground staff are working on weeds. So these are some doors. We did a lot of door painting. We had the stickers from COVID about wearing masks and all that. Well, the stickers were very damaging to the paint as we were removing them. So we did a lot of door refreshing. This is the B building over at Block Middle School. It looks really great. Some of the rooms is just like elementary or middle school students are a little messy sometimes. So some of the doors just need some freshening, and it does make it look a lot nicer. The very first thing you do when you're on summer break and you show up and teacher goes, oh, my room is super clean and the door looks like it's freshly painted and the cobwebs are away. I just saw Michelle Gibo over here at Covington today. I was talking to her and she's like, oh, I'm in my new room. It's so great, Eric. And she was so happy. And she told me about her summer vacation. And it was nice to see that connection that staff members really appreciate all the hard work that gets done by the staff members. And you can see those are those lovely COVID signs where the face mask covering. But you know, they're great signs at the time, but they were stickers and very damaging. So a lot of work is going to be done. I'm going to try to get some more doors painted between now and the 14th. And like Sandra said, it's going to be pretty soon, right? So we're really almost 10 days away. And then answer any questions from anyone.
Question?
No questions.
I do have one question. Do we have any eucalyptus trees on? And the reason I ask is because it's my impression, based on maybe sample size too, that they tend to shed branches.
Yes, and we actually have been working with the town of Los Altos Hills. They have a fire prevention group that goes around, and they actually went out to Gardner Bullets and we had some tree work done. A lot of the bark starts to shed, and so that becomes very oily and fire hazard. Some of that work has been done up there as well. And we have a tractor that does all the weed clearing up there as well.
Okay. My understanding is that the trees explode in fire. Good.
Any requests for public comment? Thank you, everyone. We'll move
Yeah.
straight on to item number 2, the 2024 through 2029 strategic plan.
Good evening. So in June, I brought to you an update around the work we are doing to develop our strategic plan and our LCAP. So this will be brief. It's similar in that we're focusing on the 4 strategic priority areas: thriving students, empowered educators, engaged families, and strong infrastructure. And the document that you have in front of you and that's attached is our draft. And it's the combination of a survey that we did as well as input sessions with a variety of groups, including about 250 individual voices. And this year, we're really proud to let the board know we captured student voice too. So we had opportunities for 4th through 8th graders to engage in an input session with us, representative groups at the school. That's actually a Gardner Bolus poster from the student input session that they had. We asked the kids, what does it mean to be a thriving student? And you can see their answers range from, learning and that academic excellence all the way to what we hope we've captured here, being a balanced person, growing mentally, having an open mind, staying calm, being honest, doing your best every time. And really, when we think about our strategic plan, it's really affirmation of all the work that's been happening here over the last number of years to ensure kids are receiving the experience to be academically excelling, but also the skills and competencies to be future-ready learners. You did that portrait of a learning work. That's all of those competencies for the 6 C's. And then the addition last year of our focus around hope, engagement, and belonging. So we think this is a nice confirmation of the work that's been happening and that we're moving forward with. So the student outcome page, it doesn't sound new probably to you. And then the method probably doesn't sound new either, because last year we engaged in work around the wheel. And that's exactly what's represented here, those different areas. And what's been nice about this language is not only do we know the language, our teachers are starting to know and be able to talk the language. And so we're framing professional development sessions, staff meetings, our communications with them around the wheel. And that's been really powerful. And so when thinking about those 4 strategic priorities, this probably also looks familiar because we've aligned it totally to the LCAP goals and actions. So those documents are in parallel with one another. But we wanted a public facing document that also had actions for 24-25 school year. And this doesn't encapsulate all of the work that we'll be doing. It just highlights in these different strategic priority areas some of the big work. So when we think about the wheel and deeper learning, it's really around our professional learning with our teachers and with our staff. As I mentioned earlier, around professional development, we're focusing on rich learning experiences and then the development of skills, habits, and mindsets. And then new this year, we're really excited about an initiative for kids to make their learning public. So whether it's through exhibitions like the Egan Viking Showcase, or in student-led conferences, or just presentations that they do in their individual courses, it's a focus for us moving into this year. We've been focused on getting different tiers of support in place for students, whether it's academic interventions. We're also going to be looking at social, emotional, behavioral, and attendance supports and interventions in that area. Finally, shared leadership. We're looking at ways to grow our teacher leaders and have voice and them engage in different committees and different activities, as well as our classified staff members. And then under the families front, just continuing our work around involvement, making sure parents feel connected, engaged, welcomed. Also that they're getting streamlined communications so that our communications are strategic and aligns our messaging across different platforms. And then you've heard a little bit about just some of the work tonight around facilities. We hope to adopt a 10-year facilities master plan and then secure funding to modernize our current district sites, as well as create a detailed plan to move forward with our 6th through 8th grade middle school model. And then strategic budgeting, we've spent time talking about our initiatives to compensate our staff in a way that's competitive, so we can continue to recruit the very best, as well as ensuring that our budgets are stable and balanced. So those are our actions and priorities, and I just included the LCAP actions as a a reference that we are working really hard to align these documents so that the different documents all speak the same way when being reviewed by public. I would be happy to take your questions, but I also want to note there's a message from the superintendent with a very
Yeah, the great
lovely
pictures.
photo.
Yeah.
It used to be 3/4 of the page.
But I hope, like our leadership team, that you feel hopeful and inspired reading this and about this work, because we sure do, and we support, I really appreciate your support so much. We couldn't do the work without your support, so thank you so much.
Questions?
I do have a question. Is there, I'm sure this is living on our website, but is there any thought to like mailing this booklet to everybody in Los Altos? So that they know what their tax dollars are doing with this wonderful stuff?
I love that.
No, I'm serious.
Yeah.
Because we do get the mailers, I think, like, I don't know, I don't remember which group sent it, but, I mean, our mailers, but I thought this booklet is so nice, and I know that it's probably expensive to print it and mail it and send it to everyone. But I really think that our community needs to know all the great stuff that we're doing and the great stuff that we've got.
Maybe it's a little postcard with a QR code to get to. Yes, we'll
Yes,
look
something.
into that. Yep.
Something. Thank you. It's amazing.
Other questions? Yes.
So I have, just a comment, and then one specific, issue, I think. So let me start with the issue. You don't talk about the 15% of our population that's not doing as well as we hope they would do. And I think that needs to be a focus until we get that number down to 0. So I would offer that we need to modify the strategic plan to incorporate. The other thing is, I'm sure that in your discussions, you already cover a lot of this. But there's no theory of action here. If we do this, then this will happen. So that's the outcome that we're. And I know that you're doing that in your conversations all the time, because you wouldn't choose something to put in here unless you had a background of theory of action in there. And so I would urge you to incorporate some of that, at least in whatever we send to the parents. Because that's more, it's more solid. Yeah. And also, actually, there's another thing is some qualitative numbers would be great. That last one, the qualitative numbers, is very hard. Because how do you measure, just choosing one here, each of the staff will have multiple opportunities for shared leadership. Well, there's multiple opportunities, there's shared leadership, what does it count as shared leadership, what are the opportunities? It's a really hard nut to crack. But I know that you've done excellent work in that area, so that I'm sure that you'll be able to get this done. No problem at all.
I think that LCAT document is gonna hit a couple of these marks for you, because we did have to capture metrics with each of these areas. We did have to really call out what are we doing for our struggling students, specifically with baselines metrics. But the point on theory of action, let's see that in there, I think it's well taken, because this is based on the science of learning and development, the wheel we didn't create. So it does need some references and
So a lot of
citations.
this, I think, is great aspiration. Right, when you try to implement it. Okay, that's
Thank
all.
you.
Any questions? Any requests for public comment? Any further comments? For them? No?
Thank you for.
Great job.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
this is what.
By the way, I know how hard it is, at least in business, to get a strategic plan in place. And my guess is that at least 3 times harder in a school district. So congratulations.
Yeah, thank you to Carrie for leading the charge. She's put so much blood, sweat and tears into this work this year.
Yeah, thank you. This is actually an action item.
It is an action.
So,
Oh, yeah.
prepared to entertain a motion to approve the 2024 through 2029 strategic plan.
Are we incorporating the suggestions?
How would you like to phrase it? Do you like to propose a motion?
I'd like to move that we, ask Carrie to consider including some of the suggestions.
Consider including is fine. I'm not
Yes.
sure that.
Consider including, I
Yeah.
don't know if we agree necessarily that they need to be in the document, but if you could find a way. And it was,
I'll defer to your expertise, Karen. But as worded by Vladimir, I would second that motion.
Okay. Motion to approve the 2024-29 strategic plan with some requests for follow-up and comments as elucidated by Vladimir, made by Vladimir, seconded by Shally. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes 5-0. We move on to item number 3, overview of the 2024-25 state budget.
So the board adopted our budget last June, and not a lot has changed since the state did adopt the budget, but I want to kind of highlight a couple of big things. As a community funded district, a lot of things that happen in Sacramento don't impact us too much, but there are a couple. The first one, the COLA is for categoricals is only 1.07, so some of our categorical programs are going to have a very small increase, which includes special education. And as we've been talking about this, every school district in California is underfunded in special education. And so California has struggled to meet that. And so the COLA is going to be only 1.07 for some of these categorical programs. There is some potential for some cash deferrals where the state would said you would normally get your money in June. They might push it out to July or August. And then if things get pushed out, and you've been hearing about the maneuver, and it's just an accounting trick to move cash to a different fiscal year, well, then school districts have to make sure they have enough cash on hand. So we're always mindful of our cash. And we did do a resolution to borrow some interfund borrowing and also a TRAN if needed. And then there's gonna be really no additional funds for universal TK. Sandra mentioned earlier tonight, we did expand 2 extra TK classes. Each TK class cost us roughly $240,000. So it's another almost $500,000 of extra TK classes that are not funded from the state. Great for programs for kids, not great for your budget. So, and I want to acknowledge Greg Drummond, who's been great working with and Carrie, the whole CNI team, getting ready for the extra 2 TK classes, HR getting people hired, getting the classes ready, ordering the furniture. I've never sat in such small furniture. It's so tiny, and I was, but it's really neat to see that. So I really do want to acknowledge it was really a team effort of everybody kind of coming together to make that happen. And then the CalPERS increase rate. CalPERS is the state retirement system for our classified employees, and that went up from 26.68 to 27. Went down a little bit. We did see a return that some of the CalPERS and CalSTRS returns are a little bit better right now, but that's just a snapshot in time. And as you know, the long-term obligations for to fund pensions is very expensive and very costly to the employers. So we're going to always be watching those. One of the biggest, health and welfare and our retirement is one of our largest expenses for our benefits for our employees. We're always being very mindful of that. One of the things that is the state is going to be called Prop 2, and you'll hear much more about this, is Prop 2 is the state facility bond for the entire state of California. And the approximate funding amounts are about 3.3 billion for new construction, 4 billion for modernization, which, and you've heard a little bit about the modernization and through our facility master plan of all the work that needs to be done in all of our schools. Career technical education, as an elementary district, we really don't offer those type of programs. Mostly high schools do. And then the charter schools, about 600 million for new charters. One of the things, San Jose Unified was going out for, I think, a $1.2 billion bond last week, and they talked about it. But although it's on the November ballot, people often think, oh, well, the state's passing a bond. The school districts don't need money for school construction. That's really the amount of money that we could qualify for. It's very small versus the amount of needs that are out there for us. And we've been talking about this for the facility master plan for really the last 9 months. Putting together a list, we'll be finalizing that master plan in the next few weeks, bringing that to you. And as you know, the amount of needs that are out there far outweigh the amount of funding that's available, even at the state level. It's just very small, almost like a thimbleful of what the district could actually get from the state if the state bond does pass. Prop 2 has some additional funding opportunities. They talk about lead and water, supplemental grants for, that include TK classrooms. We don't know if that will even make it, how that will pan out. A lot of the funding is, the regulations haven't really been developed, so you don't really know what's gonna happen, who qualifies. Is it gonna be only, rural districts, urban districts, who gets that money? CTE classrooms, which I talked about. The supplemental grants, is MEF, it's minimal educational facilities, and that's like libraries, multi-purpose rooms, admin offices. That's kind of what that is for, because most of the modernization is for classrooms. And the MEF is for like multi-purpose rooms, libraries and things like that. And then new construction grants rather than modernizing for, over 75 years. Our buildings are not quite 75 years old, but they're getting pretty close. So just reminder is, you'll hear a lot more about Prop 2 and the state bond in November. But it's a nice thing to have. It's always great to have, and I'll kind of show you what we could possibly get. This is in your board packet. And it does take several years to qualify, to find qualified projects. And then it can take you sometimes 3 to 5 years once you have a qualified project to actually receive the funding. So you have to get in line with many other school districts. And so the project might be done, and then you'll get the funding back a couple years later after the project's already been completed. And there's some matching requirements. So for example, the state share could be about $9 million. The district would still have to contribute $6 million. So not a huge amount of dollars, but it is significant. It could help us with some of our smaller modernization projects, but nowhere near enough of what we need to do. We've been talking about this in our facility master planning. There's probably about $755 million in needs. So $9 million potentially from the state will not meet our needs. And that's kind of why I talked about the matching number if Prop 2 passes in November. So it's a very quick overview of the state budget. Not a lot of major things impacting our general fund, but for a future bond on the program, this is a nice thing to have, but it will not meet our needs by any means. And answer any questions you might have.
What is the column eligibility mean, the numbers there?
Sure, that's based on the number of classrooms. There's some formulas that the CDE uses. It's based on classrooms, it's based on the number of special day classes available. There's a lot of factors and it changes from year to year. So as your enrollment goes down as well. Our TK enrollment and K enrollment is very stable. That actually helps us for new school construction grants and modernization grants. But as the numbers go down and many districts are having decline enrollment, those numbers will change. But right now, our snapshot on 23-24, that's our eligibility number right there for classroom buildings.
Is a high number good in terms of being able to get money?
It's just the amount, a lot of it's based also on your enrollment. So if your enrollment's dropping, then those numbers will drop. So yeah, you do want a higher number as well.
Oh.
It helps. And you can see Almond, the enrollment's been fairly stable there and dropping slightly, so they don't have as much eligibility money available to them. And so every school is a little different, and it does change every single year.
Do you have any idea what other schools are?
I don't,
Okay, thanks.
we have a funding consultant that we work with, and yeah, and they've been super helpful because they give you an idea of what you would qualify for if you went out and got in line now.
Thank you.
Other questions?
I have one question on the thing as it relates to what the state will spend money on you said as it relates to the 600 million for charter schools, but you said new charter schools, like brand new charter schools.
Correct.
Okay, I just wanted to
Yeah.
clarify that.
Yes.
Thank you.
Any requests for public comment? Thank you very much. Move on to item 4, resolution 24/25-01, bond measure. On chemistry.
Well, it's been a very exciting time, the last 9 months, to bring this, have this brought to the board for vote tonight. We're asking the board to vote for resolution 2425 to consider approving a resolution to place a ballot measure on the November 5th election, $350 million of the general obligation bond. Establishing specifications, in the election order, requesting consolidation with other elections occurring on November 5th. And this is really a culminating event of really 9 months of hard work, staff, architects, and by the board, a lot of presentation, the big process to get us to identify all the identified needs for our programs and what it really benefits kids the best. Our schools have not been touched in almost 25 years. And they're showing that, which is okay. Many school districts have been passing bonds over the years, and this is an opportunity for the district to do a tremendous amount of modernization at all 9 of our campuses. Dr. Bosco mentioned earlier about really giving us an opportunity to do our middle school model, which is very important. And we really are excited about to get this measure on the ballot in November. So we're asking the board to adopt this resolution.
Any preliminary questions?
We do have Dave Olson, one of our municipal advisors here today, and Serena Kernberg is also with Jones Hall to answer any questions from tax rate statement questions, and just some of the financing. If you have any questions, they're here to answer tonight.
What?
Comments.
Okay, I'll get to your comments in a minute. Any requests for public comment? Board member comment? Mr. Bond.
So I expect this measure to pass, and I expect the vote to be 4-1. And I'm gonna be the person who's gonna vote against it. And fundamentally, the reason I'm gonna vote against it is because it privileges BCS over LASD. In that LASD facilities will be completed before any BCS facilities will be completed before any LASD facilities. And if you look at the work that's been done, that's part of the facilities master plan, we've actually spent $1 million on plans for the 10th site, but we haven't spent any money at all on LASD. So I don't think the right thing to do is to privilege BCS over LASD. And so I'd like to make a motion that we add someplace in this resolution, I don't know exactly where the right place is, but that requires that no bond money for BCS facilities, other than relocating BCS portables, be spent until all LASD schools have had their facilities upgraded. No, it's not the end of the comment, that's the end of the motion.
Okay.
And so I don't know if you want to take it up now or wait till other comments.
Well, is anyone inclined to second that motion?
Okay, so by not seconding the motion, you are privileging BCS over LASD.
We disagree with that.
All right. So. Your motion dies without a second.
Okay,
You may
that's
continue
fine.
with your comment.
Yeah, I didn't expect it to happen. So there've been two major reasons that have been advanced for putting BCS on the 10th site. The first one is that it will solve the BCS problem. And that's simply not true. First of all, there are 200 kids that are not going to be covered by moving 900 kids, BCS kids to the 10th site. And I would argue that it's more likely that the best campus on LASD will attract more students than any other option. So we would actually be hurting ourselves by putting BCS on there. Further, if we force BCS to go on the 10th site, it's extremely unlikely that we're going to be able to extract any concessions from them, such as an enrollment cap or a neighborhood preference. And so I think from the point of view of the impact that BCS has on us, particularly our finances, putting them on the test site is just going to make the things worse. The second reason that has been advanced for putting BCS on the 10 site is that it allows us to move to a K-5, 6-8 model. And no evidence has been presented about exactly how much our educational program would benefit from that. Sandra has listed some things, but there's no evidence behind it. It's just an assertion. And I don't think that we should spend, well, I don't think we should ask the voters of Southwest School District to spend upwards of $730 million over the next 30 years on mere assertions. I think we need some evidence to support those assertions. And even if it is true that the K-5, 6-8 model would improve educational outcomes, I'm not sure that our parents are behind that. I've heard anecdotally, some yes, some no. And it depends on particular parent and their child. Some of them have said, my child would definitely benefit from middle school. Other ones have said, no way. So we have to convince parents that that's the right thing to do. And I've commented before that we're already the best, one of the best elementary schools in California. So it seems to me that the amount of improvement that we could have is actually going to be very small, because we're already right up at the top there. And if I had to spend, if I had $730 million to spend to improve educational outcomes, facilities would not be on my list. Well, some facilities would be on my list, but basically it would not be facilities. It would be teachers and instructional programs and those things. It would not be building a school for a charter school that has been spitting on our face for the last 20 years. So I've made these comments before in various different places, and it really bothers me that nobody has bothered to counter those comments. What's happened is that I've just been ignored. And as I said, I'm really bothered with that. We do have some alternatives. We could put BCS on the 10 site portables. I'd be happy with that. We could also, if we did that, we could also tell the city of Mountain View, don't worry about it. It's only temporary. We're going to put up school there that will have a neighborhood preference. As it is, it's unlikely that BCS is going to have a neighborhood preference. So we're going to piss off Mountain View if we do that. We could lease the 10 site to Mountain View. My understanding is that they're looking for a new site, they need a new school. It's a possibility. It's in Mountain View, so we sort of like reasonable. We could turn the 10 site into a K-8 school. Our school, not BCS. And lastly, and this is actually the way that I think that we will be able to make BCS shrink. We could focus on making sure that we are demonstrably better than BCS and make that known to the community and to the rest of the area. Right now, using doing apples to apples comparisons between us and BCS, we actually do better than BCS. But that's not known. That when a realtor goes out to offer a house, they often point to BCS as an example standing school. It should be the case that they only point to LASD, school. So as I said, I'm not gonna vote for this, resolution. And my understanding is that, current polling has, the number of people who are inclined to vote for the bond measure, is just a little bit over 55%. So a small change will make the bond measure fail. And I think that that looks bad.
I think we should respond to what Vladimir said, because I don't want his comment hanging out there. Untouched. So, I mean, I'm not, all of you jump in and respond, but, I'll go to our academic program, the TK to 5/6/8 model. I think Sandra and staff have presented evidence, or Jeff has staff also. We've been talking about this for many years. They have presented evidence that it is beneficial to our, especially to our sixth graders, to give them that opportunity. And for as long as we've been discussing this, that I've been on the board since 2019, January 2019, parents have been of two minds about it. Some support it, some don't. And, you know, I went to public schools my entire life, K through 12. But that doesn't make me an expert on education. And so I defer to the experts that we've hired, and I think we've done a good job of hiring good superintendents who've hired strong teams. And I do like that your teams do push back on you, and I think that it makes our programs that much stronger. So I believe that there is evidence that moving to a 6/8 model will be beneficial. And I think that we, in all the discussions that we've had, and I do have to disagree with you, that we are not ignoring your comments. You know, you're not, I take them in good faith, I do. But they have been answered, and we have seen it is beneficial, and I think really, and I just think to myself, yeah, we're probably one of the best schools in the state. But that doesn't mean that we can be complacent and just keep going along. I think that our students, as the years go by, deserve newer and better and more exciting things and more exciting educational philosophies and all that kind of stuff. And I think that LASD has always been at the forefront of education and the way we deliver our education, the way we do professional development. We're at the forefront because we keep challenging ourselves. We keep challenging our teachers, keep challenging our staff, keep challenging ourselves to do better because we want to do better for the next wave of students coming in. So I took a few other notes. I don't think we can lease a site to Mount View Wisman. That's within our school district. So I don't know. Oh, you guys all.
I can start there. We would have to, basically, that whole area would have to become Mountain View Wisman if they were to get to that site. So yes, it's a possibility, but it's more complicated than you would think. I would agree with Shelley, like, yes, maybe it is a minimal improvement. But we LASD are lifelong learners. We're always trying to be better. Let me go on up here. Agree with Shelley on how many times the staff has brought to us how sixth grade, moving up to the middle school would be a better model as it relates to not being able to extract concessions from Polish charter school. For example, you brought up their enrollment and how it could increase. The law as it relates to charter schools has changed such that them increasing their enrollment now is a material revision, and the county would have to take into consideration whether that would have a financial impact on the district, which in fact, we have a lot of proof that does. You know, case in point, the $10-11 million that goes to them a year, that would otherwise be educating our students. And I'm trying to go to the page before, which I can't go to. But, so I guess I won't be covering any other points because I can't see my notes.
Look your notes.
Yeah.
I would add on to what was put there, in the group level, a little bit, I think the discussion about moving to the middle school model preceded mostly being on the board, then through that discussion for a while. And we've had those discussions about why it's a benefit, what should be done. Also, I think us trying to manage the charter school is something we've attempted to do since we've been on the board, and it's not really worked at any time. I think we've seen the most action now that we've got the county to step in and actually take action how the charter school is working. Facilities really isn't something they're gonna worry about. They're gonna worry about, which is, you know, the increasing number of attendees, the type of attendee, all those things are things that they're gonna, so that will be, they seem to be at least paying attention for change, which is helpful. And then I think the pressure we're gonna add to that, and 3D's been adding to that, should see an outcome. Our negotiation directly with the charters really had zero impact. And then I think, I view this bond measure that we're putting out here to be the second step in what will be a multi-step process. The first one really was to acquire this. There was funding put in place to make sure that we could really develop it out. And then the world changed and the funding didn't come through. And so what we're doing now is completing that process. And then this will be, the reality is, if we look at what other districts do in terms of bond funding, we're so extended right now. This actually puts us almost to the middle of the page. There'll be more that will need to be done. Bonds that will go through. So I think that we're looking to, with the bond, to complete that first step that was done with the acquisition of the site at the beginning of the development of it. Now we're gonna be able to improve some of our sites and take care of that, but also deliver that middle school model, which we've been talking about doing for a long time. And then look at the final version of finally, probably another bond out there. A few, 6-7 years out, which is what other districts are doing on a routine basis. That would allow us to complete the things that we're referencing in the master plan report that we're going to be looking at and finalizing in the next month or so. So I disagree that to look at these things as a snapshot, it doesn't work. You have to look at it as a continuum. And I think what we're trying to do and what we've been working to do as a group is to get others to get on board to help us move them along in a lot of different ways. So I think it's just the perspective that I have is different than your perspective on how things are moving forward.
Brian, had some comments?
Sure. I mean, I agree with many of the comments that were just made in response to some of your comments. I think that one thing that Steve didn't mention about the 6th grade discussion is I think it has evolved over time. And what has made it more pressing in my mind is the enrollment declines that we've seen. I've heard a lot from Sandra and others over the years that trying to do 6th grade with only 2 6th grade teachers in an elementary school schedule paradigm has gotten harder and harder because we're expecting more and more specialized education for our 6th grade students. And we frankly are not offering the kinds of electives, especially in 6th grade, but also in 7th and 8th, that surrounding districts can offer because our junior high populations have shrunk as well. Parents have been asking for earlier foreign language instruction. They've been asking for more intensive music instruction, for maker spaces and robotics courses and all of those things for a long time. We can do those things both for our 6th graders and more easily for our 7th and 8th graders if we consolidate down to 6th, 7th, and 8th, which I think is why it's become more pressing now. Another thing to your comment about spending more on programs, Eric has presented to us. We're currently spending $1 million a year on 25-year-old quarter on the Egan site to house junior high. And so being able to move those students to a brand new facility will actually save us programs, right? For clarity, for anybody who's watching, sort of bond money cannot be spent on salaries. We have a whole thing in the bond language about how it cannot be spent on program salaries. And so it's a facilities pot of money. It's a facilities pot of money that we really can only easily access every 2 years because the 55% threshold comes with a number of restrictions, one of which is that it has to be done in a major even year election. So we don't put this on the bond, if we don't put this on the ballot now, waiting until 2026, when costs will have gone up and we will have been 2 more years delayed in the planning process. I think, yeah, the suggestion of running it to Mount Wisman, school districts are not actually allowed to operate schools outside of their boundaries, so as Jessica pointed out, that would be a major realignment. Let me see if I have anything else in here. I disagree with your conjecture that no money will be spent on, or your assertion, I guess, that no money will be spent on LASD campuses until the BCS site is finished. I don't think that that's true. I think there are a number of projects included in the facilities master plan that we had presented to us last week that can be done quickly after we authorize and begin issuing bond measures. And I think our campuses will see significant improvements even before we could finish, because we're currently projecting the 10th site to open for the 27-28 school year. Is that correct?
Yep.
So I think we will be seeing significant investments in campuses. And I mean, as far as where BCS goes, in my mind, I think the 6th grade shift is important. And so I think the alternative to placing BCS students at the 10th site is placing BCS students at a third of our existing campuses, the way we talked about a number of years ago in response to the Prop 39 process, because we need to make space at our junior highs. And we've been delayed for 10 years or more in doing that by the presence of a lot of BCS students on the junior high. We need to get back to prioritizing our junior high program. And making some tough decisions. Let me see if I have anything else here. I also think a lot of, a lot of the details about what happens. So for anybody who's not read ahead in the agenda, we're going to have a whole separate item on the BCS charter school renewal process. So we can talk a little bit more in depth about that next. But, the facilities master plan is going to come back to us in 2 weeks as a draft. I expect we'll be taking action on that in September. And that is the point at which we'll decide how much exactly of the bond measure would need to be allocated to the 10th site. But the majority of this bond measure, based on the presentation we got last week, is going to be invested in our current schools that haven't seen investment in a long time. And so, respectfully, I understand where you're coming from. You're making a little bit the perfect the enemy of the good. We have legal obligations to provide BCS facilities. We may not like it, but we have it. And the question before us is how to do that in a way that ultimately allows us to deliver the educational program that we want to fulfill this obligation.
I'd like to clarify what I consider acceptable. There are, in any particular situation, let's say, enrollment at BCS. Some people have said that enrollment at a school will draw primarily from, not primarily, it will draw from the surrounding area. And I think that actually is probably true. What's evidence is articulating how much of the enrollment increase in a particular school is due to the enrollment. It's a number or a range of numbers. And there's also in that presentation, the evidence, there's also a discussion or an indication that this is not really a factor, this is not really a factor, this is not really a factor. So when you look at the entire thing, you have some numbers that you can refer to that either tell you yes or no, this is happening.
Mm-hmm.
And what I haven't seen is any numbers. I agree that we are going to improve the educational outcome of kids.
Mm-hmm.
But by how much? And That's one of the things that I don't think we discussed. For all the rest of them, I think I could spend some time and argue against them. But I would rather have the public make that decision whether your counter arguments actually were effective.
I think for what it's worth, this bond, for me, even though it's a facilities bond, I see it as a very significant investment in our programs. Because I think that, you know, we've been very good about letting BCS have whatever kind of program it wants, but there's a cost to that 20 years later, that we don't have a program that we want to deliver. And I think if we get even some portion of BCS off of Block and Egan, I think that we can do our sixth grade program, and we move the sixth graders off the elementary school campuses. I mean, God only knows what the elementary schools could do. You know, I'm not trying to be facetious, but I mean, Carrie and staff, all of you can figure that out, but it'll be such a profound ripple effect. I can't really predict what's gonna happen, but I know that I know that this bond is a major investment in our programs, and that's why I'm standing behind it. If it was a bond only to build a new facility for BCF with no benefit to LASD, then I would vote against it. But I don't see it that way.
And I would also like to add on to what Eric said when we first talked about it. It's like 25 years since we put money into the schools. They're getting more expensive for us to run, so more money has to come out. General fund to run and maintain stuff. We're starting this again, that process of at least getting the infrastructure to take the HVAC stuff, to plan to do. So that all has to be started and done. And on the version of what we saw first discussed, that was always in the first wave of stuff that we took and touched our schools. I think those things all in free up other money for us to actually spend in the classroom. So I think that those steps have to be taken.
My objection is that we're not spending $350 million on LASD. We're spending $150 million on BCS.
I understand your concern. I've heard it for a long time. But I do think that the reality is, as long as BCS exists on our existing campuses, we're kind of stuck. And we've chosen to be stuck for 13 years, at least the 13 years I've said. Yes, we've chosen to be stuck. And I'd like us to see a path to be non-stuck. And this to me needs to fix that.
Yes.
I agree with Steve that it's time for us to be unstuck. The issue has been for 20 years, they've been in a camp school and then in another camp school, a version of the camp school at Walk, which was the original camp school. It's time for us to be able to solve this issue and be able to go to focusing on our program. Like Shelley said, it's going to open up our ability to focus on our own private program. We will be able to focus. One of the other points you had made, which I remember now from my notes, is that, you know, we need to be focusing on marketing our schools better. We have that. We have that. We are always going to have the issue. We are a great district. We are as you agree, we're at the top 1% of the state. By nature of them being in our district, they're an amazing charter school, great school. And because they're a choice, they're seen as better. Simply because they're a choice. I don't think they're any better. I don't think their program was worse either. I think we are equal in program. But because they're a choice, they are always on the scene as better, no matter how much we spend. And, you know, we do have the superintendent's ambassadors committee that does all that marketing every year. And we have volunteers from across the district at all of our schools doing work. And we have staff members helping us in that department. And it is a bummer that we're not shown as the best. It's something we're not going to be able to do over time. And I think that's it.
I'll just, Jessica maybe think something else that I wanted to add, which is, I also disagree with the broader implications of the assertion that we're building this for BCS. We're building a campus in the most populated part of our district. And given our enrollment declines and our financial position, we're talking about allocating that space to BCS in the short to medium term to fulfill our obligation to provide them. So we're not handing over the keys in perpetuity to BCS. So I expect that probably will be an LASD school sometime in the future as things change. And I mean, as all of us know, but maybe haven't said explicitly, BCS has not been enthusiastic about the prospect of occupying that. If they would like to come to us with a proposal that allows us to shift our sixth graders to our junior high without worsening the traffic apocalypse, without impacting our thing in other ways, I think all of us here would be happy to reallocate that money aside from the minimum that will fulfill our obligations to the city of Mountain View to our existing school sites. But we also have to deal with the fact that we're spending $1 million, that any proposal would also have to deal with the fact that we're spending $1 million renting portable, 25 years old. And so, you know, at the end of the day.
At the end of the day, the voters will decide. And
I'm sure.
my expectation is it's worse than the economic.
I don't believe that statement, but I appreciate that statement. That's
I think we've all said and heard what each other have said. So. Would someone like to make a second? Motion?
So, a second motion.
Right.
Okay, I would like to move that we approve resolution number 24/25-01, the bond measure.
I said.
To,
All right, motion to approve the resolution made by Shelley, seconded by Jessica. Any further board discussion?
As presented,
As presented.
as presented.
Any further board discussion? Okay.
there is one point. I'm not against bond measures.
Mhm.
I think we need a bond measure for upgrading the facilities.
Mhm.
I'm against spending our bond measure money on ECS.
Okay,
That point is totally well taken, partner. I hear you. I sincerely hear you.
You have to follow through.
Well, but the follow through for me, I mean, I hear you and I see what you're saying. But for me, I feel like the best thing we can do for our students, for the families that chose LASD as their educational home, is to move BCS off our campuses so that we can have the program that we would like to deliver to our students. I think that'll be much more beneficial in the long term.
Would you be willing to put them in portables there?
We've already established that, we've already discussed that as a board here, saying that we don't agree with the statement.
And quite frankly, I find it very difficult to believe. I don't understand why the BCS board would continue to force their students to stay in portables as opposed to permanent buildings. They have the opportunity to move their students into permanent buildings, and they would rather choose to keep them in portables in a camp school type of situation. I mean, that's not the choice that I would make for our LASD students. Our LASD families, I should say.
okay. Absent any further discussion, I will call the roll. 'Cause I think I already reiterated who made the motion in the second.
You did.
Jessica,
Yes.
Shelley,
Yes.
Frederick. Steve,
Yes.
I also vote yes, motion passes 4-1. So now we will move on to item 5, BCS charter review.
Alrighty, we did want to bring forward a discussion item tonight, since we last had a meeting here. I know we have some of our team who is going. Thank you all so much for being here. Appreciate it. Since we last met, I'm trying to get the dates right in my brain, but the county board on the 17th of July held a public hearing where Phyllis Charter School had 10 minutes to present about their charter renewal. The staff gave a quick presentation really on process of renewal for the county board, and then Brian did an excellent job with our 10 minutes talking about how the charter school impacts us and children within our community. So I thought it might be helpful to just have an opportunity to talk. Have anything to say?
No. Anybody want to make questions or comments?
And you sent them, didn't the staff or the board had asked us questions after? work?
Yes, that's true. There were maybe 2 hours of Q&A from the board to mostly Bullis Charter School, but occasionally to us.
Sure.
Um,
Yeah, I mean, I'll offer for anyone who's watching, who didn't watch the county board meeting the other night, basically as I see it, my colleagues can expand or correct me. But the immediate context for the BCS's renewal is that back in 2021, the county department that oversees county approved charter schools issued what's called a notice of concern, basically saying that they had noticed that the BCS seemed to be serving certain demographics, including socioeconomically disadvantaged students, special ed students, in disproportionately small numbers compared to the district as a whole. And that with recent changes to charter law, that could imperil their charter renewal. That basically failure to correct these shortcomings could end up being a reason for their charter renewal to be denied. There's been a lot of back and forth over the subsequent years. BCS has made some small efforts, but they don't seem to have borne any fruit in terms of changing demographics. So the county board actually reaffirmed that notice of concern in August of 2023. And so at the hearing, a lot of discussion was into the details of that. And so my presentation basically was oriented towards the fact that obviously we've seen a lot of those discrepancies over the years. We've heard a lot from community members who feel like they have not been served or been discouraged from attending BCS, and to offer, in lieu of denial, which we understand would be disruptive, obviously, to the charter school, although it may be called for if they can't come up with a corrective action plan that the county believes in, some suggestions for ways for the county to meet their oversight obligation and sort of measures that BCS might be able to take at a minimum that would suggest a seriousness around addressing the defects called out in the notice of concern. Specifically, a couple of those were strengthening their free and reduced lunch preference. They created an enrollment preference for free and reduced lunch students a couple of years ago as part of the whole notice of concern back and forth, but they capped it at 10% of the available openings, and also it comes after siblings, so the number of actual openings that are even eligible for the 10% has been very small. We think that cap should be removed and the preference should be moved up in the order so that it's the first preference. We think, as was alluded to in the discussion we just had, that BCS having facilities at the 10th site with a preference for that surrounding neighborhood, which includes many families which match the demographics that BCS has historically struggled or declined to serve, would at least show a willingness for real change. We also have suggested in the past that perhaps BCS should, if they can't manage these demographic parities at this size, then perhaps they should shrink until they can figure out how to address those things. So there's been some discussion. I think I've been working with staff on a follow-up email along the same lines, which I expect to deliver to county board. I can't remember if you just said this, but the county staff will be delivering a staff report to the county board. That's due, I think, by the 11th, but it's expected to come out on Friday. The 9th, because that has to be released at least 2 weeks before the decision hearing. And the decision hearing has been set for August 26th. So anyone who's watching this, who wants to communicate with either the county board or attend that hearing, more than welcome to do so. The district will get 10 minutes to speak at that hearing as we did at the last hearing. So, did I miss anything that anybody wants to add?
Is it, just to clarify that in the, I guess, in the past, BCS had tried to take corrective actions, but it didn't seem substantive enough because they did not move the needle.
Yeah, I think that's one way of characterizing it. I think personally, I would characterize the corrective actions as at best half-hearted. I don't think there's been any introspection that we've seen on the BCS part as to sort of why they have failed to address the issues that, that we've sort of been pointing out to the county boards longer than just even the 3 years. So yeah, I mean, it really, the introduction of the free and reduced lunch preference is the only one, but that was only after they were essentially forced by the county to remove their historic Los Altos Hills preference. So, and clearly it hasn't moved the needle, as they say. So that's why I think, I think I would characterize it as the corrective, to whatever, to the extent that they have tried to implement a limited corrective action plan in the past, it is clearly failed. The notice of concern was actually delivered back in 21 because their charter was originally going to be up for renewal at the end of the 22-23 school year. And then as a result of COVID, all charter renewals got extended for 2 more years by the legislature. So really, they should have only had a year to correct that. Instead, they've had 3 and they still haven't managed to do so.
That's a good point.
Anything else that anybody wants to say?
I mean, I guess my only addition, really good summary is that a lot of their focus was how good their program was. They did not really cover, BCS did not cover any of the notice of concern, or if they did it very glossed over it for sure. So, and that presentation was similar to letters they had written back to the county when they got the notice of concern. They said, you're wrong, we're doing it. And also, if you're right, they had blamed it on us, or they were saying, we have been portraying a false narrative. But as the county told them, this is the data, this is your enrollment, it does not mirror the district. So it's not a false narrative if in fact there is data to back it up. So I just wanted to emphasize that. That's
Okay, unless anybody has anything further, then we will move on to H6 board policy updates.
Great, well, we know we are back to a regular meeting when our board policy updates are back on the list. So thank you, Marcy. We have several board policies for you to review between now and our next meeting on the 19th. Please let me know between now and then if you have any questions or concerns so we can address those before coming to our next meeting for approval.
Questions or comments?
I gave a nit edit to Marcy, which she is taking care
You expect nothing less. All right. We move on to section I, board and administration comments. Bosco.
Yes, just briefly, I wanted to thank the teams that I work with for all of their work getting us ready for school year. So Marlene and Aaron in the HR department, Val and Donna in IT, and Greg, Sarah and Grace and Tina. And I wanted to mention Greg also helped format the strategic.
Oh,
plan.
nice.
Spent many hours on it and such a fun to thank those team members.
Want to thank Jeff Bear, who came back to help pinch hit, and facilities and maintenance. We've been on speed dial, texting and emailing all summer. It's been great having him around. His last day will be Thursday.
Oh, thank God.
He's gonna be. Also really thank all the custodial staff, the cafeteria staff who came to help give us extra help, the groundskeepers, maintenance. It really has been a team effort. Everybody's really stepped up with all the moving parts of doing all the deep cleaning and maintenance projects during the summer. And then really acknowledge the business staff who've been here all summer. As a lot of staff are on their summer break, the business staff are busy closing the books, getting our accounting, paying for all the bills in the correct fiscal year. We're getting close to closing the book. It's been a great year. I'm really excited for school starting really in 9 days. It's been great. So thank you.
Thank you.
But
Steve and I went to the new teacher
Oh, you did?
orientation lunch. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was exciting to meet the new teachers, and they all looked very excited to be here.
Great, great. New folks.
And I'm really glad that they chose to come here,
Me too.
as we are still quite the destination school district. But I'm really excited for the new school year. Looking forward to it.
I have nothing to add. I would have liked to go now, but I have to deal with COVID.
Oh, my gosh.
Which I'm fine now.
Thank you.
You didn't bring the test results in to share.
Haven't coughed, have I?
Steve and I also attended the Valley Health site visit block.
Yeah.
Which was well attended by district staff, who were all great in elucidating sort of the need and the vision for what we'd use that money for. So hopefully,
We'll keep you posted.
yeah, hopefully, it will come through, and it would really be great to have a dedicated sort of wellness initiative, because while we are doing stuff over there, it is in part by staff that has to juggle different responsibilities and occasionally do counseling sessions and
Yeah.
everything else. So it would be a meaningful increase from a dedicated population. Okay.
Mhm.